welcome, YouTube community. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our next episode in our LL8C hunting series. I'm joined today by Mr. Mark Mitchelson. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going, Chris? Thanks for inviting me on this podcast.
Of course, of course. For those of you who do not know, Mr. Mark Mitchelson is a member of our board of directors and is also he's both proverbially and literally family to the group here. He and Matt obviously are brothers, and so he's Mark. Has been with Lazy Lab since the beginning. It's been very involved thus far. How's everything going today, Mark?
Not bad, not bad.
So the focus of this podcast is going to be an upland fowl or upland hunting. For those of us who are uninformed on what that phrase upland hunting might mean or upland fowl, what are some examples of upland hunting?
Yeah, upland fowl hunting is really broad. It can be turkey, pheasant, dove, grouse, variety of different birds, variety of different styles. Sometimes the upland fowl hunting is called the gentleman's sport because you're able to sleep in during the day, eat breakfast. You're not in the muck at 3 a.m. getting a good hunting spot if you're going to go on something like pheasant or dove. Go in there, stroll down the field, and as long as you have a good spot, you're able to really enjoy the hunt in a very casual, leisurely manner. But then on turkey, on the other hand, it's very different. You do have to go in there early because the turkey are able to jump down off the trees right at the beginning of the morning. And if you're set up in a nice spot, you're able to take advantage of the surroundings much easier in the mornings. So you do have to wake up early. It's kind of fun. Each little style of upland game has its different techniques and tricks. You can never be a master at one and a master at the other. You really have to kind of involve yourself with all the variety of the different hunts.
You mentioned finding a good spot. Is competition heavy to find a good spot, or is it just, are you the only one out there and it's just you find the spot that works best for you?
It really depends on the different type of upland game you're going for. So for turkey, I'm here in Northern California, and the public hunting lands for turkey are just overrun with hunters. It's actually quite sad. You really are going down into a wildlife area, and you may actually see a truck every quarter mile, just always tripping over each other. So wow. Yeah, absolutely, it is something that you have to be wary of. And especially for turkey, everybody doing different calls that might actually trick you into thinking that there's something over there, and it's actually really another hunter. Now for pheasant and dove,
right? Excuse me for interrupting, but so for those of you that don't know, I am not a big hunter in any regard. I've been on a couple of trips, and my take thus far is nothing. So Mark and Matt and DJ are really, they're experts as compared to me. But we're talking about other calls. We have a guy over here doing a turkey call and a guy over here doing a call. Are the actual birds confused by that? I mean,
absolutely could be. I've done it a couple times where I've had a Jake or a Tom come down the hill coming toward me, and I think I'm doing a great job. That's one of the reasons why I like upland game so much, is because you really see a progression. You really have to work for the hunts and calling these birds in. However, if a hunter is a quarter mile away or on the other hillside, and all of a sudden they start making their call, then the bird can get confused and all of a sudden go over there, and you think you're doing a great job, and then they take a about face, and you're wondering why. So it can be very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to derail you there, but that was just a thought I had. And
yeah.
You're talking about pheasant next. What about pheasant with regard to primality per se?
Pheasant is very fun. I think it's one of my most enjoyable hunts, just because similar to what I was saying, you don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to find a good spot. As long as you have a good wheat field or rice field, in Northern California, we have a lot of rice, and we're able to utilize those rice fields when it's dry. And you just stroll around. You have a good dog that is able to sniff out the pheasant. It's just amazing how just the positioning of the dog and yourself, almost like a triangle with the bird, and being able to just see that bird pop up, and it's kind of like trap shooting. It's really fun. And then as long as you hit it, goes down, the dog gets it for you, and it tastes amazing.
Hmm. How long is it between when the dog, I guess, locks on to the bird to when it flies up? How long do you have to aim and take your shot before that thing's just gone to oblivion?
Um, it probably is a matter of seconds, to be honest. As long as the dog actually locks onto the birds, especially if you do it in a like kind of a farm area where they are birds that are planted for, and you go out for an actual paid hunt. Many of these
Mm.
birds aren't wild; they're farm raised, and they won't fly up into the air until the dog actually almost pounces on the thing.
Oh, wow.
So when it goes up in the air, you've got maybe 3 to 5 seconds before it's out of range.
Mhm.
And you probably shoot the bird from, I don't know, maybe about 10 to maybe 20 feet at most up in
Oh,
the air. It's really a low level shot, and you have
uh-huh.
to be careful if you don't want to shoot too low to the ground and actually potentially injure your dog.
Oh, wow. Do you have a particular breed of dog that you find to be best for your pheasant hunting?
Um, you know, uh, the labs are always great with the water dog, with the waterfowl. These, GSPs, German Short-haired Pointers, um, any kind of pointer dog can do a good job, and
Mhm.
especially with any of these hunting dogs, you really do have to start when they're young, train them up right. If as long as you really instill that aspect to the dog, you'll be fine.
Okay. So speaking of training a dog young to be, an expert bird dog, what about you? What got you interested in hunting originally?
Honestly, it was just another activity that allowed me to just kind of, I don't want to say vent, but it's more of an activity for me to really just be out there with myself, maybe with a friend, coworker, just kind of be able to do something different than my day-to-day work. I'm a nurse by trade. When I started hunting, I was an ER nurse. Very high excitement, high energy, and sometimes you just really need to release that energy on a different activity. And hunting really was one of those things that was an opportunity for me in
Mhm.
Sacramento. We had a lot of waterfowl, a lot of upland game areas, and it was very easy just to go drive for half an hour to an hour, and you were already in a place that you could do this.
Mhm.
Um,
Um, do, do you typically go by yourself or typically go with a friend? What's your fave?
Honestly, I kind of like going by myself, to be
Mhm.
honest. I like the ability to just go out there by myself, clear my head, just walk for miles if I need to, and get set up into a spot. Um, it's just one of those things. I do like, if I go hunting with another group, I do like going hunting with maybe one other individual. That way we can cover more area, maybe not sit in the same area at the same time,
Mhm.
but cover more ground. And maybe, he'll take a ridge line, I'll take a ridge line, and we're able to communicate back and forth. So maybe we could push something toward each other and work as a team.
Mhm.
But it's something about just being out there in the wild with nothing but yourself. One of the best stories I ever had was in Beale Air Force Base by Sacramento, and we were turkey hunting. The coyotes were definitely on the hunt as well, and I thought I was in a great spot. Um, and all of a sudden, a coyote came and ran straight at me, and had no idea where I was. And I stood up, and it got scared and ran away. But it's one of those things where you're able to engage with nature in a way that you may not be able to in any other sport or recreational activity.
Um, Kind of getting off topic a little bit here, but if a coyote is attacking you or running towards you, do you get is it like a shoot that thing first kind of thing, or do you attempt to scare them away and say be gone?
A lot of people do. I was in the middle of the very beginning part of the morning, so I didn't want to ruin my chances on another turkey
Mhm.
by just telling them where everything is and getting them scared. So you absolutely could. I know a lot of ranchers do shoot the coyotes in the area, string them up on the fence posts as a kind of a scent reminder for these coyotes to stay away from the land, particularly around the cattle ranchers that we have around here. If they're around and causing trouble, absolutely. There's a whole lot of them in Northern California, so it's not like we're making them endangered or nothing.
Uh, Now, that's something you know fairly firsthand because if I'm not mistaken, you raise some livestock of your own, yes?
Correct. Yeah, we've got goats, sheep, chickens, ducks, geese, even a llama or two.
Llama. What's a llama good for?
Honestly, it's
I-
kind of like your uh, uh, livestock guardian dog. So it's
oh,
kind of, a lot of people do the Great Pyrenees,
yeah,
and they have them out there living, raised with the livestock,
yeah.
and they keep them from bears and mountain lions and coyotes. We've actually seen it firsthand where the llama has had a coyote running up and down the fence line, and the llama literally will corral the livestock, put him into a corner of the fence line, and stand between him and the coyotes, and until the coyotes went away.
Wow.
So never taught him that thing. Never could teach a llama to do such a thing.
Right.
So it just innately
Okay.
has herd-like protective mentality. It was just the craziest thing to see.
Interesting. It's lucky you got to see that. I mean, I wouldn't think that would be something you'd see very often, at least.
No, no, and truly, I didn't even get to see it. My wife saw it, called me about it, and in her innate protective nature as well, went and actually shot at the coyote while it was
That's
going on.
love that. That's awesome. So you mentioned earlier that pheasant is your favorite upland fowl to hunt. What kind of restrictions do the state of California put on you with regard to that? Do you need to get licenses, tags, taxes? What do you need to do to do pheasant hunting in California?
Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Of course, you have to get your annual hunting license in the spring, summertime area, and then you buy a specific upland game tag, and that really does give you a broad coverage of whatever you wanted to hunt, be it dove, pheasant, grouse, turkey,
Mhm.
and that's all you really need. And then, of course, the limits are very different for each bird.
Is that something that you need to you can't keep in the back of your mind when you're hunting, or just
Very much, because a lot of the limits, except for dove, but for pheasant and turkey, it depends on the season and it depends on male versus female. So for the springtime for turkey, you can only get three male, and then in the fall you can get only one bird, male or female. And so it's very specific on what you're able to do each time you go out. You definitely have to check.
that's interesting. Um, Speaking of each time you go out, does your tool of choice, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, what are you shooting with for the various types of upland that you work on?
So, it's first weapon ever purchased was a Benelli Nova 12 gauge pump action shotgun. Um, it's gone through all the muck, the dirt, and just absolute nasty terrain that I've hunted through, and it's served me well. It's never jammed, never had any issues, had minimal cleaning that I've ever had to do, and the reason why I also like it is because it holds a variety of shells, between the 2 3/4 all the way to the 3.5 inch shells. So you are able to really fire a variety of different rounds.
That's interesting. My wife, she's not a big firearm nut, but the one thing she's asked me for I, we've been married for 15 years, probably the last 10 years or so, is a shotgun.
Mhm.
She's gone shooting with me maybe twice with my handgun, but she just always wanted a shotgun. What would you recommend to a new shooter like that for a tool of choice?
Honestly, I would probably recommend more of a 20 gauge. It's a bit shorter barrel, a little bit lighter of a load, very little kickback whatsoever, and a great learning tool. One of those things that a lot of upland game hunters like to use is a 20 gauge because you're able to move the barrel much faster and it's much lighter, particularly when you're shooting something fast, like say dove. It's much easier to use. So for somebody who's either just learning how to fire a shotgun and is very nervous about that recoil, or you're starting to teach your kids how to fire shotguns, and the 12 gauge just may be a little too much, especially when you give it to a 10 or 11, 12-year old who may
Hmm.
not have the mechanics built in just yet. 20 gauge would be amazing.
Gotcha. I remember around 11 years ago, I think, or so, was your brother's wedding. And I don't know if you recall, when we went trap shooting there the day before or the 2 days before the wedding. And Sophia, my wife, put many of us to shame. This was her first time trap shooting, and be darned if she didn't outshoot most of us. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that was
I remember that my jaw was dropped at that time. It's one of those beginner luck things. I think maybe I don't know. Maybe she just innately is amazing at shooting. I don't
maybe,
know.
maybe. Well, she made so many other things, so that wouldn't surprise me too much. Um, so you've hunted obviously in California um, and various other areas. What's been your favorite place to hunt upland fowl so far?
It was probably
And
down.
the next question is gonna be why. So
Yeah.
would you rather
No,
hear?
no, no, definitely. Honestly, it was probably Central California, Fort Hunter Liggett. It's a Army Reserve base down there on the coast, so kind of by Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo area, and it was my favorite. Honestly, I got skunked. I did not get one bird.
Oh,
So you think, well, why
why's
was
your
it?
favorite then?
Because there are so many near misses, and I think that's one of the reasons why I liked it so much. The challenge that was there. There was very little competition, very little human activity. So it was really just you and the bird. Um, I think partly because it was our army base, limited access onto the base,
Yeah.
and you were able to really just get in there and work your call. Well, work around different hills. It was a very good amount of rolling hills, so you did hike a good amount. I think that day we hiked maybe 10 miles, 10, 12 miles. So you were moving,
I
but it
guess.
wasn't anything super steep. And had a couple birds, got close, didn't get close enough, but just the ability to have that extreme competition and maybe not get successful, but it was just that oneness with nature and be able to just have a lot of peace at that time.
You mentioned there a near miss, and I know there's math to go along with it, but if you're using 12 gauge or 20 gauge at a bird that's 10, 20 feet high, that's how far from you is a bird you're taking a shot at? 20 yards, 30 yards?
It can be, yeah. I think, especially with a 12 gauge, you don't want to go any further than about 30 yards. The choke on the end of the barrel, you can modify that to be wider or narrower depending on what kind of bird you want to go after.
Mhm.
And yeah, you definitely don't want to go much further than that.
So,
Ideally, if you do something within 20 yards, that'd be ideal.
so at length, how big is the um
Oh, the spread.
yeah, that's the word, yes.
The spread, and that's kind of the reason why I like shooting the shotgun so much. It's so
Uh-huh.
different between the choke, which you can narrow down the loads to be more narrow. You can widen it out to be wider. But then in that, each shell has a different number to it, and each number kind of tells you how big the balls are inside the shell. So the lower the number, the bigger the ball. Your duck shells are typically number two or number three. Your pigeon or something smaller could be all the way up to number six. And with a wide choke with very small balls, your spread can be 5 maybe 3 to 5 feet wide.
Wow.
Makes it very hard sometimes to hit something if it's too wide and too small of the shell.
So when you're saying all that stuff about spread and the math and the choke uh, and the adjustment of the barrels and things, um, how much of that does a new hunter, or let's say a new non-hunter, need to
Mhm.
know in order to be effective or in order to have fun doing the sport? Can you walk in
Uh,
with zero knowledge but just some good coaching on safety and have a good day?
yeah, it's really not that hard. I mean, you can get into the intricacies of it all and just go to town on it, which is actually kind of fun. But for a novice hunter, the regular choke that's on a shotgun is totally fine. The shells that you buy, depending on which bird you're trying to go after, actually, the manufacturer puts that type of bird on that box of shells. So if you are somebody who wants to go for waterfowl, turkey, or pheasant, they actually
Um,
have those on the boxes. So it's semi dummy proof when you're able to
uh,
purchase the right shells.
is it like a little bird emoticon or something? A little,
Yeah, basically. Turkey ones have a turkey on them,
yeah,
and a duck has a
yeah.
duck on them. So it's fairly simple. Even I was able to figure it out. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, but yeah, and then after that, many experienced hunters, if they are just having fun, will try to narrow their shot to make it harder for them to hit
That makes
anything,
sense.
just so they can have a little bit more of a challenge.
Mhm. Speaking of having more of a challenge, when you get to be good, like I'm sure you and your experience are, what are some of the things that you might do to keep it fun for you?
Honestly, right now in my life, it's more teaching. So of course you want to find a good spot. Many times, if you're able to get access to private land where the abundance of the fowl are more, it makes the hunts more rewarding. But being able to teach, truly, I've got a 10-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter, and I've actually already started to teach them firearm safety and being able to go out there and not be afraid of the weapons. We haven't made it all the way to the shotgun yet. Working on that one.
Yeah.
But being the 22 long rifle, the 9 millimeter semi-automatic pistol, we're able to really teach them the intricacies of the firearms, the safety behind it, and then just have them tag along on the hunts to be able to just learn the tricks of the trade, what to dress, when to wear orange, when to not to wear orange, um, facial coverings versus not, and, how to stalk and spot without being loud and thinking that it's just a game.
Mhm. Um, Speaking of it being just a game, do you have a hard time? I don't know if your kids are um, in the video game community, but do you have a hard time distinguishing between real life and the game? Is there any kind of crossover there that makes things difficult with teaching kids, do you think?
Not yet. And I think that is probably why I wanted to get them into firearm safety so early on, so they didn't take the Call of Duty type of attitude on firearms and take that to the range. We are many times, if people go to the range, we all know of people that are idiots and do things improperly, unsafe. And I think exposing them early in real life to firearms and being able to realize that an AR is actually a very intricate weapon at times, and it's not one to just wave around and flash people. It's there's always that chance. And anytime that they're there, we treat it like it was the first time, remind them about ear protection and remind them about keeping the barrel down toward downrange. And if they bring a friend, do the exact same thing. So they don't think it's just fun that they have friends at the range, that they actually continue to focus on the safety aspect.
Mhm. I apologize for getting so off topic. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss waterfowl and upland fowl hunting, and here I go down these rabbit trails of gun safety and kids and stuff. Um, but to take that rabbit trail one step further,
Sure.
so my son is 9, soon to be 10, and my daughter's 8. Um, I've done shooting with them with an air rifle in the in the backyard and such. Uh, but I'm wondering when is a good time, do you think, to, and are we already there, to take them to the range and rent a 9 millimeter, rent a 22 LR, and and teach them the real thing, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think 8 or 9 is definitely an appropriate age. Of course, each range may have different age restrictions on
Uh,
there. We're lucky
I,
enough to be able to go
I
to
live in Texas. So I'm pretty sure the restrictions are nothing. So
perfect. There you go. Yeah, no, yeah, no, as long as they're able to hold the weapon in a safe manner. The 22 long rifle, they're able to do very, very easily.
yeah,
Um, my 7-year-old not able to do the 9 millimeter yet, just because she's not strong enough. But the 22, she can. Um, I was very impressed by my kids actually about a month ago that I tried to get them to fire one of the compact 45s I had, 1911 model, it's got a good weight to it, good kick to it.
yeah.
Uh, and my son, 10 years old, fired 3 rounds and then said, Dad, this is too much for me. I'm like, hey, you
Wow.
know what? That's great. Thanks
Yeah,
for letting me know. Kept the pistol down range. I took it from him, and then we kind of moved on from there. So I really think it's kind of dependent on the person, depending on the child, if they're able to be comfortable with it. Um, it's a lot of trial and error.
yeah.
Hopefully not any error,
Right.
but a lot of trialing.
Yeah, I've been thinking about recently taking the kids to the range and maybe renting a 22 handgun or a
Mhm.
22 LR, and then maybe for my son, then step it up to renting a 9 mil. I don't own a 9 millimeter. I own a 40, so I don't want to put him on that yet because
Right.
it's a fairly slight 40, so it's going to have a lot of recoil. Um, but yeah, I think you've inspired me, Mark. I think I'm going to try that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, I think our next opportunity, our next escalation will probably be the shotgun. 12 gauge, maybe a little too much for my girl just yet. She's not got a lot of upper body strength and control just yet. But it's every little bit, kind of keep moving with it. Um, Probably won't let him work on the AR for a little while just for safety's sake.
Yeah.
But each person's a little.
Um, Hey, I want to jump back to your favorite hunt in on the army base in Central California. You mentioned the spread size. You also mentioned using the call effectively. I want to talk about using the call effectively. How do you learn? Because I've got to imagine that to us, trying to speak bird through a call to the bird sounds just ridiculous. But how do you learn how to use the call effectively when you're out there on the lands doing your thing?
Honestly, it's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of YouTube. Thank goodness for the internet. If you're able to go out there with an experienced hunter and just listen to how they do different calls, that's a great way to learn, especially if you're successful. And then, of course, listen to podcasts such as this, different YouTube channels. You're able to learn different styles, but then it all comes down to practice at that point. You've got different calls for upland game being a one of my favorite ones to use, where you're able just to literally push a stick in a box and be able to make the sound of, say, a hen for a turkey. You're able to use different reeds that you put in the top of your mouth and being able to make the cluck sounds that different turkey and females use. Um, you have the calls that look similar to like a duck call for a dove, where you're able to call them into as well. Each bird has a different style of call and a multitude of different ways to call these birds in. So you really do have to trial and error, see what works, see what you're most comfortable with, how you're able to create the best call that you can use, and just have fun with it.
Does I'm sure that the likes of Willie Robertson and the Robertson clan would tell you that the call you choose make all the difference in the world. Is it as much the hardware as it is how it's used, or is it more the tactic behind the use or behind the call to be effective?
I would say that I'm sure you probably do increase your chances if you have a better quality call. However, I've been very successful with a $5 box call that I was able to get a tom into the area and fire away, and I was able to get a turkey that way. Um, but you definitely hear a difference. And I know we're talking about upland game, but for waterfowl, if you have a $5 duck call and then you have a $80 $100 duck call, you definitely can hear a difference in the pitch, the sound, how the reed vibrates, and being able to maintain that call, and it doesn't just break on you after the first season. So there is an ability to have a better tool, and maybe a much more reliable tool over the years if you have the more expensive call. But if you're out there and you're in a pinch, you want to go to Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, and just get a cheap little call. As long as you know how to have the basic style of it, you should still be okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that information with me about the upland fowl. I guess my last question for you is, let's say that you're a guy who does what you do, and I'm a guy who's never hunted before in my life. What do you say? What do you say to me to get me started? What advice would you give me to do my first hunt for upland fowl?
I would say definitely partner with somebody who may actually uh, do this more routinely. If you know somebody who can walk you through the process, because it's still a hunt, it's still potentially in a high congested hunting area. It could be very dangerous with other hunters in the general space. So grab a set of camo, do whatever tools you need based on their suggestions, and do your research a little bit. It's amazing how much just a little bit of planning with where you're going, the route that you want to take, and telling people where you're going just in case that you get lost or injured. Just that little bit of research and communication really goes a long way.
That sounds good. Well, hey, I want to say I appreciate you for taking the time to chat with me today about this and to inform our viewers as to what upland fowl hunting is and what kind of ins and outs of it are. Those of you that are watching, I want to say thank you for joining us for this podcast. There's going to be more coming down the line pretty soon here. And hey, I want to encourage you, like, share, subscribe, help us get the word out. We're trying to serve disabled veterans and give them outdoor therapy experiences like they've never received anywhere else, like nobody else is doing. But you know what? It takes money to do that. So if you could please join us, I'd appreciate the podcast viewership. Like, share, subscribe, like I said, and visit us at lazylovehc.org/give. We have a wealthy benefactor right now who's matching all donations. Anything you can give is going to be that much more kick for your donation. So we'd appreciate you visiting lazylovehc.org/give when you can. And Mark, thank you for joining me today. Everybody else, bye-bye.